Okay, well, we've got nothing really to do at the moment. The weather's gone a little bit piss poor for getting engines out the shed. So we've got the old worn out 5 horsepower here. Don't actually know what year it is. All the model code was probably on the top here and it's all gone rusty and you can't see it at all. So yeah, can't really find out how old the thing is. But obviously if you've seen this engine before, it smokes like no tomorrow. So we're going to be completely dismantling it. We're going to clean it all up as well. We're not going to paint it at all or anything like that. We're not going to put any new parts in it. We're purely just taking it apart. 1, because I'm bored, and 2, because I actually want to find out what is actually wrong with it and what's causing it to smoke so bad. We know the actual bore is scored, but we don't know what sort of shape the piston is in, or what sort of shape the piston rings are in, or if it's even got all of the piston rings still intact, or if one of them is broken, or if it's purely just smoking because there's plenty of carbon and muck gumming up the oil control ring. Who knows? So we're also going to possibly grind the valves in as well, because the compression is really poor. But she's still packing a good spark. She would probably start right now on this bench here. If I put some petrol down the carb, she would probably fire straight up. But we're just going to see why she smokes so bad. And so first of all, we got some pretty nasty oil to drain out of it, and it's overflowing. Draining out the oil. My God, is it disgusting. This is old engine oil out of a diesel transit van. So you can imagine it was it's old engine oil as well, so it was already horrible before it was putting this in. But still, oil is oil. Okay, let's see if we can lift this cover off now. A bit difficult to do one-handed. Well, that was well caught. Right, that was very well caught. That could have ended in a bit of a disaster. Right, anyway, we managed to save it. Not looking too bad in here. Roller bearing crank, as some people suspected it might have, and it most certainly does. The roller bearing is somewhat stuck on the shaft. Whether that's actually been spinning in the housing or what's been going on there, we don't really know. Some mysterious green paint for some reason. Nice big oil dipper on it. That's very cool. Yeah. She's not looking too bad. I wonder if we might be able to get that bearing off the shaft. Okay, we're at the point now where we can get the piston out. We've taken out the V end, which is actually in pretty good condition. Not bad at all, no deep scores, just a little bit of marks there, but it feels nice and smooth. So there's no problems there, which is good. We're going to put the camera on the tripod now and push this piston out the top. See what it's like. Alright, let's give this a go. Hopefully the camera stays in focus. See if we can get this piston out. Ooh, there's some giant ring gaps. No actual broken rings. The oil control ring is clear. There is some pretty bad scoring on the rings though. Or some equally very bad scoring of the bore. Which is obviously why she's smoking so much. These rings are probably quite worn as well. You'll be able to really... Oh yeah. Check out that for a ring gap. Not sure how far zoomed in I am. But that is quite huge. yeah, not much we could do there apart from put new rings in it, but we're not going to do that. Interestingly, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but the top two piston rings aren't staggered. Pretty sure that's how that came out the bore. We'll check that bit of video, have another look. Yeah, she ain't looking too pretty in there. Yep, we just checked back that bit of video there. Ooh, just hit the tripod. And the top two piston rings weren't staggered at all. They were actually near enough in line with each other. So maybe if we stagger those, grind the valves in, we might get more compression, and she might be a bit easier to start on her own. We might actually not have to prime it anymore. But the bore is really bad, and the piston does have some pretty bad scores in it. I think it would need a new piston, new rings, possibly boring out if we were going to ever do anything with this engine. But that's the whole point of this engine. It smokes like the clappers. That's what makes it worth keeping. If it was just another decent running 5 horsepower, I'd just sell it. But that's why I got this engine, because it smokes like the clappers. Okay, like I was saying, the bore is pretty bad. Those are pretty deep scores there, and doesn't get any better on this side. This side is really rough. You can actually see that, catch your nails in those grooves in the actual bore itself. And we haven't cleaned up the piston yet, but that looks equally as scored in places. Not looking too good. We have certain points on the piston here that are really bad. You can see a good wear line there, and there's some big gouges in the piston all around here, and an equal line on this side. More gouging on this side, and also on the actual top of the piston we have some evidence of stuff hitting the top of the cylinder head. So yeah, pretty nasty. But again, for an old Briggs & Stratton, the actual big end isn't too bad. Nothing really wrong with that. Not bad. Okay, we have ourselves a pretty much completely stripped 5 horsepower block now. Just the actual valves are in place at the moment. Those will be coming out in a minute. Gonna grind those in. May as well do a little bit of work to her to try to get her running a bit smoother whilst we're here, without replacing the piston or the rings. We're not doing anything to that, which I know sounds completely pointless, but we want this engine to still smoke like the clappers when we're done. But the cam looks in pretty good shape. No real wear there, which looks pretty good. Plenty of oil on it. Actual little lifters here as well. They all look to be in pretty good shape. They're not worn. Plenty of oil on them as well. A little bit of grit there on the crankshaft, but let's wipe that off and see what that's like. That's pretty good. Nothing really wrong there. See what the other side of the crank is like. Pretty good as well. I reckon if you had this engine bored out, new piston and rings, perhaps drill out and put some new valve guides in there as well, you'd have yourself a pretty damn good engine. Okay, the valves are now out of the block, and not in bad shape really. You probably don't even really need grinding in. They look pretty good. Might just put a bit of fine on them. actually look pretty decent. Like they might have actually been recently done to try and gain compression, but obviously that wasn't going to work because the piston rings are all in line for some reason. I don't think they've ever been out. It's like they were put in like that in the factory. Strange one that. I'm not sure what to say. Okay, got as much of the engine as we can now cleaned up, and also got, oops, we're also starting to put a few more things back into the engine now. We've got the valves ground in and put back in. That was a pretty long job to get them back in without a valve sprue compressor. I've got one, but it's a little bit too big, so it really is fiddly. But we got there in the end, and pretty sure I got the cam tied up correctly now. So that's the exhaust stroke. The piston's back up at top dead centre now, sucking in fuel, and then it fires. So that should be correct. It's sort of hard to get the timing marks lined up. You sort of got one there because the bearing on the back here doesn't come off, and yeah, it's sort of pretty difficult to get them to line up, but I think I've got it good enough anyway. If it's if it's one tooth out, it shouldn't make too much of a difference, but it seems to be correct anyway. It definitely fires with both valves closed, so yeah, it should be okay. And I noticed something else as well. It's obviously not an easy spin start engine because there's no decompressor in the cam, so that makes this engine fairly old. This is probably actually a early 60s 5 horsepower. There's definitely no easy spin there. So 55 psi, which is what it had before we took it apart, was all the compression it has to give. So we'll see if grinding the valves in and staggering the piston rings this time, they weren't staggered before, does the job. Okay, well, the piston is now back in, still carrying forth with it. It's an impressive amount of play. So yeah, we'll see how she goes. But we're going to get a few more bits back on it now. Obviously all the cam is in there. We've bent the tabs over on the connecting rod bolts. So yeah, we're going to start to put a few more bits actually on it now. Yeah, another thing that carries with it an impressive amount of play. Other valve. Okay, well, it's all back together. Just got to put the air filter on and the exhaust. We've got the pipe on there, but the exhaust needs to be put on the back. Yeah, so we'll probably start her up tomorrow now in a separate video. See how she goes after this little bit of work. Hopefully the compression's going to be a little bit better. It does actually feel a tad better. There's still not much there, but oh well. We'll see if she'll go tomorrow.